Alright, so I recently started rewatching Megalobox, which if you don't know, is a boxing anime that is made in tribute to the 50th anniversary of the legendary series Ashita. Although I really don't want to call it a boxing anime, it's more of a character-focused drama with boxing attached to it. Its themes of perseverance even through the greatest of adversities were something that were very resonant to me at a time where I desperately needed an emotional catharsis. But in rewatching the show, I couldn't help but be reminded of my favorite first-person shooter of all time, Titanfall 2. From my perspective, the arduous journey this game has gone through over the years is quite similar to that of Gearless Joe within the context of the anime. And like Gearless Joe, this game is not dead yet. Not by a long shot. A game that was brought to the edge of oblivion by a single individual, but was brought back from the brink at the most unlikely of times. That's Titanfall 2. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Titanfall 2 is the second game from Respawn Entertainment, the now famous developers of Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. After the successful release of their first title, Titanfall, they immediately got to work on a follow-up, with the goal of making some improvements. The staff at Respawn noticed that despite strong initial sales, player retention for the first game was very low. And they knew that the lack of a traditional single-player campaign was probably the main culprit, so they set out to rectify that issue. They wanted to distinguish their campaign from one that you would find in a Call of Duty or Battlefield game, and they wanted it to have the same amount of energy that you would find in the multiplayer modes, even if they couldn't directly port multiplayer elements directly into the story. And it worked. They made a banger. Titanfall 2 released on October 28, 2016 to critical acclaim and overwhelmingly positive user reviews. But there was a problem. If you've watched the video on Titanfall 2, then you know about its controversial release window, placed in the middle of two major releases for 2016. And although this hasn't been officially confirmed or denied, it is probably the case that this is what killed the momentum for Titanfall 2. I mean, how could it compete? Being a relatively new franchise placed in the middle of two long-standing juggernauts. Titanfall 2 had no chance, and its momentum was killed right out of the gate. By January of 2017, the game is estimated to have sold about 4 million units. Now compare that to Battlefield 1, which had sold about 15 million in the same time frame. The window of opportunity had passed. Yet EA still expected the game to sell an additional 5 to 10 million units by the end of its first year on sale. That was highly unlikely to happen. The game made money, of course, but it was considered to be a failure by EA, so what did they do? They all but dropped support for the game. Respawn, to their credit, did support the game with additional content throughout 2017, but alas, it seemed that the game wouldn't be an explosion like they presumably hoped. The people who were still playing the game at the end of 2017 were very dedicated, but the influx of new players was slow, especially with the PC version of the game not being available on Steam until 2020. Then, the Titanfall series' real test of strength came to pass. In 2019, Titanfall 1 began getting hit with DDoS attacks, and I'm going to put the definition of that right here. The attacks, from what the community could gather, were perpetrated by a single individual, which to me is wild. But regardless of that, these attacks persisted even through the Steam release of the duology back in 2020. But it seemed that Titanfall 2 was largely spared the ire of the attackers. This wouldn't last for long. In mid-2021, with Titanfall 1 completely unplayable, the frequency of attacks on Titanfall 2 began to increase. Even Apex Legends got dragged into the fight between the DDoSer and the players. But after that whole situation was resolved, the attacks on Titanfall 2 became worse. Much worse. It seemed the DDoSer was intent upon bringing this game down for good. It was extremely hard to play the game at this time, with queues exceeding 10 minutes, repeatedly getting kicked back to the main menu as you were trying to connect to a match, and once you were actually in a match, you would eventually get disconnected due to the extremely high lag. There was a time when no one was able to complete a match in any mode, and with no visible support from EA or Respawn, it seemed that this was gonna be the demise of Titanfall 2. However, fate had something else in mind. NorthStar. For those who don't know, NorthStar is a Titanfall 2 client that allows you to connect to custom servers, and there's a little bit of extra sauce on top. But we'll get to that. It was the breath of fresh air that the community had been trying to catch for months. Being able to play Titanfall 2 on community servers meant that no single individual was able to take down the entire game. We could once again see our matches to their conclusion. It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. And it was free. That's the thing that makes me most impressed. The day NorthStar released was a glorious day for the Titanfall community. But that's not all. It's just like this PC Gamer article says. NorthStar didn't just save Titanfall 2, it completely transformed it. Not only do we finally have access to all the modes that we were previously enjoying, but we also have additional modes, new custom games and new custom game rules, something that was never available in the vanilla version of the game. All this freedom was in the palm of our hands, though unfortunately for a large portion of the community, it was PC exclusive. I'm sorry, console gamers. Now let's talk about some of the new modes. We have Gun Game, Infection, Sticks and Stones, and what may be my new favorite mode, Fastball. We even have a hide and seek mode that's pretty damn fun. NorthStar is still in its infancy, so there's no telling what we may have access to a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. But here's what I do know. Titanfall 2 has a new lease on life, and it's a life that could theoretically go on indefinitely past the point where EA's official servers for the game go offline. This is fantastic in my opinion, because the legacy of the Titanfall games deserves to be preserved for all time. And this tool allows at least one of those games to have that chance, especially with the recent announcement by Respawn indicating that we're probably not going to get a sequel to Titanfall 2 anytime soon. God, that pisses me off so much. Single player Apex could be Titanfall 3. Right? I'm not tripping, am I? A single player Apex Legends game could easily be Titanfall 3, right? I mean, they're both made on the Source engine. They both are set in the same universe. Why? I'm getting off track. Let me wrap this up. In the months since NorthStar was released, it seems the attacks on Titanfall 2 have gotten significantly less severe. That's great because all our console brethren, or the people who just want to enjoy the vanilla version of the game, you deserve to have that opportunity. And originally, I was going to go on this big tirade saying F DDoSers and all that stuff, FEA, but I feel like we're all on the same track when it comes to that, you know, F DDoSers, FEA, this tweet, clown take. But instead, I realized I just did it. Instead of all that, I just want to give my sincere and wholehearted thanks to Bob the Bob and the people working on NorthStar, because you guys have laid the foundation for Titanfall's future. I can only hope that the Titanfall 1 revival project is as successful as this one was, because I know a lot of people enjoy Titanfall 1 more than Titanfall 2. I have never played it and I'm very interested in doing so, but we'll see how that pans out. But until then, I'll see you on the frontier, pilots.